Welcome back, minors. My name is Amber Johnston. I'm a counselor here at Student Wellbeing.
And I'm Tracy Kriegel, and I'm also a counselor here at Student Wellbeing. And it's time for your morning cup of joe.
So, Tracy, have you ever been afraid of rejection?
Yes, I can say I have. When you interview for jobs and you're thinking, I'm just not going to get that job, and being rejected. All that.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah, exactly.
So often we avoid doing things or have a lot of anxiety about doing things because we're afraid of being rejected. So maybe we don't ask out that girl or guy that we like, or maybe we go into a job interview afraid that they'll find us lacking in different ways. We approach these things in our life almost like tests, and if we don't get the result we think that we want, we feel like we've been rejected as a person. And we tend to take it pretty personally.
Yeah, it'd be really hard. You agonize over asking someone out, and then when they say no, you feel like you're not attractive or interesting enough and that you want to date. So, yeah, it's
We'll think about how often we feel like that after, like, a breakup.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all of a sudden it's a very big rejection of us as a person, rather than just looking at it and saying, maybe we weren't compatible, or maybe it was this, maybe it was that. I mean, is it really realistic to think that every single person you're going to come across that you're going to be compatible with?
No, definitely not.
Is it realistic to say that every test you're going to go in, you're going to get 100% on?
No, but it kind of looks like that, though, right?
Right. Yeah. We feel that way. And then we go into a job and we're like, oh, we want this job. But just like relationships might not be compatible, maybe you're not compatible with that job.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe there's more to it than just our personality. Maybe and that's kind of what we're going into today.
Mm-hmm.
So we are essentially under the assumption that the only reason somebody would turn down a date from somebody else is because of attractiveness of the person asking. And that isn't even remotely valid.
Nope.
Sure, attraction plays a role, but in the scheme of things, there are a large number of things that play a role too. So,
right, the person not only are they attracted to the person, but they may not have the available date to go out with them.
Right. maybe that person's already in a relationship or moving towards one. They might be in the talking phase with somebody that they really like, and it may feel like they're getting close to a relationship. So maybe they're not putting themselves out there,
right.
Because they've got a relationship already in mind that they want to be in.
Right. They just don't have the emotional energy, or they lack the energy to go out with them, maybe.
Right. Or they could be having mental health struggles.
Right.
They could be going through their own thing right now, and they don't have the ability to put the time and effort into a relationship at the moment.
Right. Maybe they're focusing on other areas in their life, and they're just not looking for a relationship.
That's entirely possible. And they might be self-aware enough to know that you're incompatible for some reason. But even if they are looking at it and saying, okay, we're not compatible, it isn't always, it's not necessarily a rejection of you, because it isn't a bad thing to be incompatible with somebody.
Right. And it's unrealistic to expect to be compatible with everyone.
Yeah, maybe they know you want kids and they don't.
Right.
Or maybe they have a specific religious beliefs that govern who they date and marry, and you don't fit within that scope.
Right.
There could be core, I call them core values, that may be different that they already know are incompatible, and you may not even realize it yet.
Right. And really it could be anything, but just because people are different doesn't mean that it's a rejection of you as a person.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing, all of this can be used towards jobs, too. We approach these instances like we're asking for approval from another person. We're asking the other person, when we ask them out, we're saying, essentially, am I good enough? And the truth is, most people that we are trying to date, we know a limited amount of information about them. So we don't even know if we're compatible with them.
Right. So maybe we can look at this like it's a house. I'm looking out the window of the house towards a view on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
If I go and look at the same view across the street from a different part of the house, would that change how I see it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing different sides of the house than I may have seen before. Maybe now in the new window, now I can see part of the roof, or maybe I can see the left part of the house, but when initially I could only see the right. I'm taking a look at things from a different perspective.
Right. And I know I mentioned this in one of our other podcasts. It's sometimes a paradigm shift.
Yeah, that paradigm shift.
Yeah.
So I think we generally call it perspective, and it allows us to see things in new and different ways. So let's do the same thing with our fear of rejection. If I'm applying for a job or asking out a guy or girl, that I am essentially evaluating them as a potential match as they are as of me. I said that really weird. Let's try that again. We're going to rewind. Okay. Let's look at that fear of rejection. If I'm asking somebody out, and remember I said before that it's me basically looking, hey, approve of me, like me, right?
Right.
Let's turn this around and say, I don't know a whole lot about this person, so instead of me saying, hey, do you approve of me, I am asking them if they are willing to see if we are a match.
Right.
Like, I am evaluating them as a potential partner, and they're evaluating me, and it's kind of like we're evaluating each other instead of me asking the other person.
Right. Looking if you guys can coincide on the same level to see if each other likes each other.
Right. What happens if that answer is no?
I think we have to be understanding that no is okay.
Right. Because if we look at it as the point of view we're evaluating each other, is no a bad thing? No, because I don't even know that this is what I want.
Right, exactly. No is okay.
Mm-hmm. And how many, like, I want you to think back and, like, how many people that you went in to date in the past. Like, especially when you, like, first started dating, and you look at them and you're like, oh, this person is the man of my dreams, blah, 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 right? And you look at them, and you look at them now, and you're like, I totally am so glad that didn't happen.
Did you keep a diary when you were?
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh! Have you
I've
ever?
got like 4 of them.
Have you ever read your diary from when you? Oh my gosh!
There's cringy.
I read my diary maybe about a year ago.
Uh-huh.
It was so funny because it was like, I love so and so, and like a day later, I love so and so. Like a day later, I love so and so. A day later, I love so and so. I was like, I don't think I had a clue what love was in junior high because I was madly in love with a different boy like every day because it was that perspective
Right.
of like I wanted, and I know this sounds like so impulsive and like
But were you in love with the boys, or were you in
No.
love with the idea of love?
I was in love with the idea of love, but it was just like that was that experiential, like, oh my gosh, yep, oh my gosh, yep, oh my gosh, yep. And like, I was friends with so many people in high school, but it was just so interesting to watch my diary flow of like the progression of meeting people and having the interest in creating relationships with all these different people. And yeah.
And then you get to know him a little bit, and you're like, oh, well, he likes...
We weren't compatible.
You know, whatever.
Yeah.
He likes... I'm trying to think of something, like, cringy, and I can't think of anything. Like, whatever. And
Yeah.
I don't like that. Therefore, we're no longer compatible. In junior high, that's usually how
Norm.
it goes.
Yeah, it was norm.
Like,
I look back now, and it was so funny. This gentleman who he lives in Illinois now. He's married. I'm married. But he posted this picture the other day on Facebook, and it was so funny. It was a pair of pants.
why would you post pants on Facebook?
It was from the 80s. It was a pair of pants that another guy in our class wore and rocked. And he goes, if I would have had this pair of pants, I would have rocked them. And I'm thinking, nope, you would not have rocked those.
Oh, my gosh.
But the other guy posted, I did have those pants. And I was like, and you rocked those. And it was so funny because I was like, yep, this is just so funny because, you know, you have these perspective of people. And I'm like, you know, it's just hilarious because, you know, all these different people you come in contact with in your lives. And it's just like, you're still friends with all these people. But it's just phenomenal how you have connections with people. But it's not a yes, it's not a no. It's connections a lot of times. And it's
Right.
learning who you know, it's not a no. doesn't have to be a no. It can just be a connection too.
Well, but also think about it, like, when you like somebody, how much do you throw them on a pedestal?
Right.
Like, you have that initial attraction, like, thinking back to, like, junior high, high school, college, you know, you start liking somebody, and you've got them on the pedestal, and they are the perfect person, and how many times have you stopped to say, are they really? Do they share core values with you? Do they how much do you really know about this person? I remember, like, in junior high, like, I liked guys because their hair was styled the right way. You know, I wasn't thinking about, like, long-term stuff here. Like, he's got cool hair.
I know.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I made that reference about the pants because, you know, when you look at the different style of people, like
to fit their personality.
Did not fit his personality. That's why I said that. Did not fit his personality. He could have rocked the pants. It just didn't fit his personality.
Oh, it makes me think of, like, have you ever seen the show How I Met Your Mother? Okay, the red cowboy boots. Where he's like pulling them off. Anyway, that was a random aside.
Right? No, it's fine. It's, you know, I think anybody could probably rock any clothes that they probably wanted to, but it's just, you know, how some people have the personality for something.
Well, but when we like somebody, we're not always looking at, like, the bigger picture. Like, that's kind of where we're going with this.
Sorry, I sidebarred.
Well, but we kind of get distracted on the, oh yeah, like, I remember these things. And because it comes to speak to us when we get older, we look back and we're like, oh man, those people were so incompatible. Yeah, because we have that different perspective. We're in the same house, different window, you know, able to see the situation from a different point of view and be like, now I'm at a higher point of view, I can see more of his house. And I'm like, absolutely not. It's boarded up in the back. There's a couple dumpsters. Rats running down the street. And I'm like, woo! It's like those movie sets. It's like, looks great on the front, missing the hole back there.
Not going there.
Right.
That's great. We're just going to keep pointing north. Not going south.
So, when we look at, when we ask somebody out, and we've got them up on this pedestal, and we say, and they say no for whatever reason, we got to ask ourselves, what do we really know about this person?
Right.
Like, and we're tearing ourselves up saying, I missed out on this relationship with this great person. How do we know?
Right, exactly.
Most of the time we don't even know them.
True, and I think that we get stuck in there.
We do. But think about it, like, to reframe it, not just as a person we want to date. What about a job? Okay.
Right.
You go and you apply for a job and you're like, this internship is the be all end all. It's what I want. It's everything I want, and all that kind of stuff. How many times have you been like that with a job, and then you look back 10 years later and you're like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't take that.
Right. I think that's a good point, Amber, because sometimes that wasn't the skill that we needed to learn. The internship you did get was the skill that you needed to learn.
Right. And it led you down the path you needed to go on.
Right. I was looking at a internship site for my son because he's a freshman here, and him and I were actually previewing an internship site, and we were kind of learning about the internship site and just kind of doing some research in on the actual company. And I was actually looking at the comments on previous interns, how they had a section on the interns who had actually worked there and the comments that they had said. And it was like, it's really neat to just see the appreciation, the gratitude that the students had said on how they had, what their experience was in serving as an intern. So it's neat. You can glean, I think, from others' experiences in internship sites, if you can go in and preview that if companies post that.
And even if you go in there and you read it and it's all sterling and it's all perfect and it looks like everything in you is saying, this is what I want, and I want to go here, all this other stuff. what we don't realize is sometimes our personality doesn't fit in with the office culture.
Right.
You know, sometimes they're looking for a specific skill. Sometimes they're looking for somebody, you know, that fits within a certain, you know, idea of what will round out their office. Because different people have different personalities. And if you go into a fairly office that has a certain vibe to it, and yours doesn't, your personality doesn't fit that, does that mean that you're not going to fit in anywhere? No. It just means that maybe that office your personality doesn't fit with.
Right, exactly. I think that's important to bring up, because it's not that you as a human being are being rejected. It's just that that's not the office for you to work in.
The same thing is if you have a partner that, you know, you approach somebody and you ask them out and they turn you down, then that's not necessarily a rejection of a person. It's just that person maybe wasn't compatible with you.
Right. Good point. Valid point. So, yeah.
Makes me think of that Garth Brooks song, Unanswered Prayers. Have you ever?
Oh, I love Garth Brooks. Yeah.
He's a pretty neat guy.
He is a good guy. Yeah.
So in the song, for those of you who haven't heard it, he talks about this girl he wanted to date in high school, but she didn't go out with him, and he ended up, because he didn't go out with her, he ended up meeting his wife, and looking back, he realized that not getting what he wanted made his life better.
Right. Thankfully. Yeah. He's always been one who's given and donated and has that whole theory of inclusion and just, you know, promoting, you know, people, you know, just finding their way in the world. And so I think that's a positive sign, because it's not about giving up, and it's not about, you know, just this doesn't work for me, you know, and just kind of sitting back and just, you know, it is about those unanswered prayers, you know, a lot of times. And so it's, you know, if you get pushed back and you get that no can sometimes be a blessing.
Yes.
And so I think sometimes we have to look at that, you know, it's kind of like, I guess in our family sometimes, you know, we're kind of known for sometimes being 5 minutes late. It's like, well, sometimes 5 minutes late's an okay thing. You know, you never know what's happened between here and there in that 5 minutes that could have been a blessing for you to be 5 minutes late. And so, you know, a no can be what sets you up for success sometimes.
Right.
So.
And it absolutely can. I mean, I've seen people that were chronically 5 minutes late, miss car crashes.
Exactly.
I've seen people that were turned down for a job that the company that they were turned down for, they were devastated over, and the entire company got, you know, had massive layoffs 2 months, 6 months later.
Right.
Like, sometimes the rejections happen, but it's not always, like, we tend to internalize it and take it as a rejection of ourselves. And that's what we want to kind of reframe this as, that rejection isn't necessarily personal. Like, most of the time it isn't.
Right. Exactly.
So ultimately, if you meet a girl on Tinder and you have a handful of conversations and then she ghosts you, did you lose out on the love of your life? Or did you even know this person very well at all? Or was that a rejection of you? Or could it have been that the person didn't even have business dating to begin with?
Right, exactly. Like, you'll never know what made the person cut contact, but we can't assume automatically that it's inherent something was wrong with us.
Right. We can't internalize it that way, because it could be the person got busy, or maybe, you know, any number of things. We have no idea. But what if it is? What if the person, how do we keep ourselves from repeatedly making mistakes that in dating that push good partners away? Like, let's say that there is something going on. This is where I advocate what I call it a relationship autopsy. We look at what broke down in the relationship, we take ownership of our role in it and the role that the other person played, and then we use that as a springboard for growth. We kind of look at it and say, here's the thing, it's never one person's fault or the other's. It's a combination of the two, and even if it appears that way, it could be a case of poor boundaries or communication skills that you might be lacking. We can always improve. Like, none of us are perfect.
No.
And so looking at when rejection does happen, instead of thinking, oh, well, I'm never going to find anybody, that kind of thing, we can look at it and say, okay, this happened, what can I do, what can I take from this, and move forward.
Might be helpful if you're struggling to do this to work with a therapist or a counselor for at least a few sessions to help work through what you're feeling. I think talking about what you're feeling, talking to your feelings, acknowledging them is helpful. Sometimes people, they run from their feelings. They don't want to acknowledge what's going on. I think that's helpful. Just speaking to what's the source of the problem? Where are those emotions coming from? Is there something that's causing a division? If you're in a relationship, what's causing that division? Is there a root to that? Or is it the test, the no, or the job, the no? What's causing that, and seeking out assistance? Sometimes just talking to a friend's not the support that you need. Sometimes it's speaking to a professional and, just being able to process those emotions and looking at, how do I resolve these? How do I talk through that? Because sometimes it can be stemming from an adverse childhood event that's actually that underlying scheme of the world, or your underlying things that have caused some of those, views of what's happening.
Well, and that's the benefit, and you mentioned, sometimes talking to a friend, but other times talking to a professional. The difference between a professional and a friend is that the professional is going to have that objectivity. And really, that's what this whole podcast, this whole episode is about trying to be objective, looking at things from a different point of view in order to helping us reframe what's happened in a way. Are we likely to know in every situation what happened? No. But we can try to look at it more objectively and say, okay, so I asked out this girl and she said no. Is that really a rejection of me? I applied for this job and I never heard anything back. Is that a direct rejection of me? Or did they have 300 applicants and mine was one in a pile? It's not always about us being directly rejected, and that's really what this podcast is about.
Right, exactly. And if someone else has a skill that's higher than yours, that doesn't mean you're less than or worse than. It just means someone else had a different skill than you did.
Right.
And that was the skill they needed.
And you're going to have different skills than they do. So the next job that applies for maybe then your skill set and your combination of skills and abilities and grades and all that, it's going to be what they're looking for. It's just about being compatible for the position, the person, the situation, whatever. And just because you're not compatible doesn't mean you're missing out on something.
Right, exactly. So, rejection can drive people to do things that are harmful. And so in this podcast, I hope people who are hearing this help you understand that you don't have to be driven to a point of anxiety and depression or hopelessness and helplessness. In the world we live in, psychological pain is real.
It absolutely is.
And so if you're feeling at your lowest point, we're here to help. We're over here in Norwood Hall on the second floor. And if you need to reach out and speak to us, please reach out. If you're out and you're not a student at Missouri S&T and you're feeling low and just feeling like you've been rejected by family, friends, loved ones, your employer, if you are employed and they have employee assistance program, please reach out to your employer assistance program. Those are free and confidential services as well. Speak with someone who can help you. Or if you're in the community listening to this podcast, you can go to psychologytoday.com and reach out for a clinician in the community. Or to everyone, 988 is always available through text or chat or a phone call. Mental health professionals are available 24/7 to listen to you. So please know that there's always resources available to you, standing by 24/7 to speak with you.
Right. And there's no shame in reaching out for help if you need somebody to talk to.
Absolutely. That's why we are here today to help you.
So to kind of sum things up and review kind of what we covered today, when you're asking somebody out or you're applying for a job, you're seeing if you're compatible with that person or that job just as much as the place that you are trying to get into or trying to work for, or the person you're asking out is trying to see if you're compatible with them.
Right.
All you're doing is asking for connection, and they're either returning the desire to have connection or they're saying I'm not available for it for whatever reason.
Right.
You might find that the person or job or whatever that you wanted and that you thought was absolutely be all end all of everything has elements that are incompatible with your needs. Just like you might find that maybe the job needs skills or abilities or whatever that aren't within your skill set at this time. And that's okay. Your skills and your abilities might fit in better with a different job or a different position that you might be happier in.
Right, sure.
And you're allowed to feel disappointed, but we must remind ourselves that we don't even know that it was what we wanted in a job or a partner.
Right.
In the surface level, it might look like it, but how really we only have a piece of the picture. We're only looking through one window. We haven't gone and looked in all of the other windows of the house to see what it looks like from there.
Absolutely. So if you've only got the lake view, remember that the ocean view is just on the other side.
Absolutely. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks for joining us today, miners, and have a great week.
Take care.
For more information about mental health and wellness, contact Student Wellbeing at 204 Norwood Hall. And you can also give us a call at 573-341-4211.
The song Happy Days is brought to us by music from www.free-stock-music.com. You can also add and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook using our handle @S&T Wellbeing.